we're joined by author Flo Perry, who says it's a great way of showcasing a variety of bodies, and also journalist and broadcaster Mariella Frostrup, who says it's not the answer to making kids more positive about their bodies. So what are the plus points then?
I think it's a classical art form, and I think that we should be open for our kids experiencing stuff that they wouldn't get the chance to experience otherwise. And I think it'd be a great opportunity for school kids to like enjoy this classic art form.
Flo, is there no? I don't think anyone would argue that giving kids the opportunity to draw and learn how to draw a human body is a good thing, an important thing. Do they have to be naked though? Do they have to have their bits out?
I think why give school children like a kind of like half version of the real thing? Surely they should get just as good experience as anyone else who wants to learn to draw.
I don't think Flo and I are going to disagree, enormously vehemently this morning, I'm afraid. But I do think that the best bit of advice I was given about child rearing was that when they ask you a question, answer it, but don't tell them anything more than they've asked you. And I've had the experience of doing the opposite on a number of occasions, and my kids going, ugh! And I do think that, with primary school kids, one of the things as a parent I'd probably want to protect them from is naked strangers. And I do feel that children are uncomfortable at that age with the, and to enlighten them and to make them feel more relaxed about it would take a different sort of education system than we have in this country. And the thing that I'm much more bothered about, because I really believe that arts education is incredibly important, and to be, exposed to creativity and encouraged in it at a young age. 35% drop since 2011, since the EBACS was brought in children studying art subjects. I think that's far more of a worry, and that's what we should be focusing on. And actually, when it comes to body image, you can see the shapes of real people walking down the street, in the supermarket.
I mean,
I do.
I think it's
I don't know where you're
point,
going.
though, isn't it, the curiosity of the child should be leading them there, as opposed to having enforced. Because some of the reactions of, oh, it's a naked body, that's a very instinctive child reaction. They're not exposed to naked strangers, probably most of the time for good reason.
Yeah, like, naked strangers that's a big word that, like, no one wants to, like, yes, put my kids in front of naked strangers. No one's going to be like, yeah. But I think that we have to, like, examine our own reaction to that and think, why do we have this disgust thing? Is it because nudity is so sexualised in our culture? And actually, if we're exposed to it in a different form, it might make us more relaxed about nudity and therefore our own bodies and feel less self-conscious. And you say that you see, like, different people walking down the street, so why do you need body image help with life drawing? But it's nice to see a body kind of glorified in art that isn't a model.
But I agree, and I think that the worst thing about our culture is the sexualisation of the naked form, and I think that would be something that would be far more productive to concentrate on. I'm sick and tired of having everything advertised to me through generally women's objectification. I think Flo wrote a really brilliant book about feminist sex, illustrated and wrote, and it's fantastic. But in that, I read an interview where you were talking about that book, and you said that actually, in drawing form, it was a much better way to approach the subject, because actually, in real life form, it's sort of too shocking pornography, and people might have been put off. And I think that applies to this argument as well, where the real life version is perhaps a little bit too distressing.
But Mariella,
for young kids.
you were talking about, you get to see people and how they look walking up and down the street. You can see their shapes and sizes. But of course, what we're talking about as well is the advent of social media and magazines and airbrushing. Is the images that young people are being bombarded with aren't realistic images.
I totally agree.
Seeing, and that's from a very young age. And actually, if we're sitting here looking at Boyko, who's sitting very still, and there's nothing sexual about him being naked in the studio today, he's being drawn beautifully by Anne there, then it takes all of that away. But the reality is, we can see what his nipples look like, we can see what his thighs look like, we can see...
I totally agree, but children have bodies too. I mean, it's not like they're unaware of what bodies are. All I'm saying is that at primary school age, it potentially isn't necessarily the most productive way to get them thinking about body image. I think that there are all kinds of ways that we should approach it, and I think talking is probably one of the key ones. And also, I think there's there's an argument to say that celebrities should be encouraged to be more responsible about the things that they advertise and the things they say that those things will do. Shapewear is a good example. You know, you won't necessarily look like, you know, a Kardashian by wearing the shapewear that they've invented or that they're promoting. And I think that advertising standards generally, if you look at an image and you think that's a real image, then that is an issue, a problem, I think.
And you run classes, don't you? I think you've got, has Anne got a mic on? You've got a mic on. You run classes. Do you ever have younger children in those classes?
We don't have an age limit on our drop-in classes, and actually the youngest person that's come along, who came along quite regularly, was 9. And we had a small group of children coming along between 9 and 12 who came with their parents. The parents left them and they drew.
And what was their... Because I think sort of one of our initial reaction was the kids would be giggly and distracted because there's somebody naked. What was their behaviour and reaction?
Well, at that age, generally drawing is something that they do very naturally, and that's what they were there for. And to be honest with you, there wasn't really any kind of giggling at all. They were part of the class, and they did some amazing drawings and enjoyed it very much. It's a very natural thing.
But let's face it, that is a situation where the parents are obviously talking about that with their children. They're bringing their children along. It's an elective process rather than something that's being foisted on them. Families are very different. There are lots of different kinds of families.
Like, why should you just wait for the families that are kind of already exposing their kids to that? What about the kids that wouldn't get their own parents?
Because I think their parents might object to it, and I think they have a right to. You know, I think parents do have a right to raise their children.
Maybe they just wouldn't think of it, and it'd be like a new, open-minded experience for this child to experience.
I think if parents were allowed to choose whether or not their children went to life drawing classes, then that would be definitely a step in the right direction, because it would mean that it had opened the conversation in the home about naked bodies and about body image and all of those things. That's what we need to be doing, is talking about a culture that absolutely, you know, there's a tsunami of ridiculous imagery that children are made to feel they need to aspire to emulating, and that's the problem.
But it's always been like that, hasn't it? I mean, art in itself, over centuries, has always presented the male and female form in the way that people of the time wanted to see themselves. I mean, kings were always tall, women were always
true.
voluptuous.
Francis Bacon, you know, I mean, lots of people wouldn't want to see their body image like that. Jenny Savile, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Your dad's, you know, nude drawings are kind of pretty... I mean, your own nude drawings,
you even look at, like, Greek sculptures of women. They don't look like Kardashians. They're
no,
more...
but they look like the aspiration of the time, and that's the point, isn't it? I think kids are always going to look like the ideal of their time.
I don't think that's true in art. I think it's definitely true in advertising, but I think in art, yes, there are idealised forms, but that's a different thing from pretending a photograph of someone with a double D cup and a, you know, waist the size of a, I don't know, piece of string, and pretending that's realistic.